South Korea is on edge tonight as the country awaits final results from a snap presidential election triggered by a national political crisis. Voter turnout has surged to 77.8%. This is the highest since 1997, a sign of just how high stakes this election is. Across the country, crowds have gathered around televisions and big screens to watch the counting unfold, with ballot boxes now being transferred to over 250 counting stations. A clear winner is expected to emerge around midnight local time. This snap election was called after President Yoon Suk Yeol was impeached and removed from office over a shock decree to impose martial law. The result tonight will not just decide South Korea's next leader, but set the tone for a nation still deeply divided. Before we head into the discussion, let's take a look at some numbers. Exit polls released moments after polls closed show opposition leader Lee Jae-myung in the lead with 51.7% of the vote. He's well ahead of Kim Moon-soo from the ruling party, who's trailing at 39.3%, according to a massive survey by broadcasters KBS, MBC and SBS. We're now joined by guests today, who is Song Yoo-jin, a correspondent at Arirang TV located in Seoul. We're also joined by Dr. Sanjay Kumar, who's a journalist at the Korea Herald, also located in the Korean capital. And we're also joined by Professor Georgi Tolaraya, who's an Asia Affairs expert, and he's located in Moscow. Thank you very much, all three of you, for joining us on the program. I want to come to you first, Song Yoo-jin. How important is this of an election for the people of South Korea? Obviously, it's been a long road since the Yoon Suk Yeol, former President Yoon Suk Yeol, now imposed martial law in December. We sat through a long impeachment trial, and now finally getting to this point that South Koreans are finally going to the polls after that decision. How important of it is it for the country?
Well, Thomas, as you mentioned, it has been a very chaotic 6 months since former President Yoon Suk Yeol's surprise martial law declaration on the night of December 3rd. And that being said, I think that this presidential election felt extremely important, though every election is important for a democratic country. This especially felt like a very pivotal and important election for South Korea, because many are hoping that the newly elected leader, whomever he may be, could put an end to this months-long political chaos, which directly impacted both domestic and international affairs for South Korea. And I think that we could see how much emphasis people put on this 21st presidential election by looking at the latest voter turnout that you just mentioned, almost hitting 78%. So I think that this record high number shows it. Many people in South Korea felt that this was a very important election to decide the fate and restoring stability for the country.
Yes, I want to move to Dr. Sanjay Kumar next. The man leading all the polls, Mr. Lee Jae-myung, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about him. He is obviously part of the Democratic Party, the opposition to Yoon Suk Yeol's People Power Party. What more can you tell us about the leading candidate and the party that's behind him?
Thomas, it is pertinent to note today that Lee Jae-myung is not just a normal politician, but he's a seasoned politician, we should say, who started his life from a very humble background. He was known as a factory worker. He started with that. Even he lost his finger also while working. And then, he studied by himself, and many things he have achieved throughout his life. So in Korea, in Korean, we call it like chasu sangha. That means like a self-made man. So he has that kind of image. And in the political arena also, he had been there since long in the Democratic Party, and he was a voice of the liberal force since a couple of decades, we can say. And most importantly, when he served as the governor of Gyeonggi province, which is the biggest one. He consolidated some of the votes there, and even we should not forget that in the last presidential election, he lost to like former President Yoon Suk Yeol through a very close margin. And as a correspondent, an observer, I could say that the young voters, especially the male voters, they voted in, at the last moment towards
Yes.
President Yoon, former President Yoon, and that was a game changer. So we should consider that he has got a very comprehensive support and comprehensive potential. But after this martial law, he became a hero among the liberal forces in Korea. So that is the background, we can say, which has set the tone to bring such kind of results. Although we still have to see, but I think exit polls are not going to make a very huge difference. We can say that it is not outside the margin of votes. Yeah.
Yes, I want to move to Professor Georgie Tolaraya next. This is an unprecedented time in South Korean politics, Professor. It's obviously going to affect the public trust in democratic institutions in the country. Obviously, we can't set back from Yoon Suk Yeol's declaration of martial law in December. What steps are necessary to bring back this public trust in South Korea? And do you think that this election has come at exactly the right time?
Well, I'm very glad this political spasm of 6 months in Korea is finally over. And I think that the Lee Jae-myung's victory was quite persuasive. It's surely over the half of the votes. So regardless of all the efforts by the conservatives, the electorate have clearly expressed its will, that it's against the conservative ideology and the attempts to undermine democracy. And in fact, Korean democracy have shown its maturity. It's very welcome news. And I would say that the South Korean liberal camp, or so-called Democrats, are no longer leftists or revolutionaries or any kind of the political forces which undermine the existing system. They in fact took over many of the slogans of the conservatives, and they're quite moderate. And Lee Jae-myung himself moved from a leftist position to a very centrist position, both in internal policy or external in foreign policy. So I think that it would be possible for South Korea to finally put its house in order. Lee Jae-myung is trusted by the majority of the population, and although I'm afraid that the conservative oppositions will try to undermine, to doubt the results of election, to accuse somebody of election fraud, I think that's not going to succeed. Lee Jae-myung will have the mandate of the population to right the internal social and political wrongdoings of the previous administration, to correct the economic system and social policies, and at the same time to give South Korea more pragmatic foreign policy line. We here in Moscow, I would say, have a sign of relief that Lee Jae-myung had won, because we expect that he will try to improve relations with Russia, although that certainly wouldn't his first priority. But anyway, after Yoon Suk Yeol attempts to undermine relations and to support Ukraine in armed struggle with Russia, I think that's a welcome change.
Yes.
Also, we know that Lee Jae-myung set stability first and pragmatism first, and it's a very welcome development. So I wish him and his government good luck in the coming 5 years.
Song Yoo-jin, I want to obviously, before we move on to policies and how they differ from both the leading candidates, I want to talk about obviously Yoon Suk Yeol, who's played obviously, who's the catalyst for this election. I'm sure both leaders had a different way of approaching the political instability and Yoon Suk Yeol's declaration of martial law, what messaging they would have put forward for it. Can you tell us a little bit about the two different approaches from both Han Duck-soo and Lee Jae-myung's campaigns in regards to this issue?
Do you mean Kim Moon-soo from the People Power Party?
Yes,
and
I do.
Lee Jae-myung from the Democratic Party?
Yes.
Okay, so starting with Lee Jae-myung from the Democratic Party, I think he kind of positioned himself as a constitutionalist and rule of law candidate because he has been throughout his campaign emphasizing restoring democratic norms and also preventing authoritarian overreach. And he frequently emphasized the need to return the power to the people, which is obviously a very big part of his campaign period, as you mentioned, this snap election happened following the impeachment of former President Yoon Suk Yeol. So I could say that his campaign leaned heavily on legal reform, transparency, and institutional checks, effectively turning Yoon's overreach into a rallying cry for voters seeking accountability. And I think that many voters here in South Korea felt that Kim Moon-soo from the People Power Party, which was the party that Yoon was affiliated with, although he left the party a few weeks ago. I think that Kim kind of attempted to rebrand himself as a unifying conservative, pledging to really turn the page on Yoon's presidency. I think that what was notable is that a lot of people kind of criticized Kim for sort of taking a stance that could be seen as defending former President Yoon Suk Yeol and his martial law declaration. But I think that what kind of drew attention was during the last day of his campaign, Kim Moon-soo kind of apologized for the uncertainty that was caused to the South Korean society caused by former President Yoon Suk Yeol's declaration of martial law. So although he did apologize, I think that both leading candidates definitely showed a different approach or tone, should I say, when they came to address the surprise martial law declaration.
Yes, and Dr. Sanjay Kumar, I want to come and talk to you next. What else is on the agenda for South Koreans? What's another driving factor behind people's actions at the ballot box today? We obviously know this political crisis has been ongoing, but South Koreans are facing other issues as well. Of course, there's other things on their mind. Could you tell us about a bit more of those things?
Thomas, you mentioned ballot box, and I would like to recall Abraham Lincoln's thought on this, like ballot box are stronger than bullets. So this time I think Korean people have realized that, and they have come up in large numbers, as you can see in the voting turnout as well. And it seems like they want to give a very strong signal and message that we Koreans are no more the Koreans of 1980s, which can be ruled without democratic principles. So this is a very emotional kind of message. I think many of the Koreans have tried to give, although there were regional divisions and some age group divisions were also there, and there were the people who were not even happy with democratic parties governments before, but since they are traditionally from the conservative side, they had compulsion to save the country kind of narrative that they were going through. But despite all these, there are huge challenges which are going to be faced by the Korean society and the Korean economy. If we see the outbound shipments in the last few months, it has declined up to 8%, and it includes shipments to US and China, both. And Trump's tariff is a challenge for many countries, including Korea, which is looking towards some sort of a strategy. So Lee Jae-myung has to, Lee Jae-myung or the elected one, will have to respond to these challenges. And we should not forget that the security aspects here, traditionally Korea had been following the Democratic Party camp. They were always advocating for Anmi Kyungjung. Anmi Kyungjung means like America for security, but for economy, we should take China also together. So this kind of a narrative was there before as well, and Lee Jae-myung is also trying to build a consensus on pragmatic diplomacy. So, but this pragmatic diplomacy also has some security concerns related to North Korea, as well as the response of South Korea to China when it comes to the issues like Taiwan, because in some of his speeches, Lee Jae-myung has said that if hypothetically China do something with Taiwan, we can say xie, like, oh, it's not, we should not be directly involved. And this kind of things has raised eyebrows of many in the Washington as well. So we have to see that how these things are going to be addressed. I'm not saying that Lee Jae-myung has become, but the political mood has been here like that. And I think what the exit polls are showing is also going to align. No matter, I can also say, I can expect that the forces in the Gyeongsang-Bukdo area and Gyeongsang-Namdo area, including Busan, they have also come out in huge numbers to vote in support of the conservative bloc. But you know, it was too late, and damage has already been done. And as you mentioned that how Lee Jae-myung has become an emerged such leader, you know, Thomas, Rome was not built in a day. When these perceptions are built, it is not built just in a day. There is a like political anger in the last 6 months, but at the same time, Lee Jae-myung somehow has galvanized these perceptions into political reality, and this made people understand in a very different way. So I think these are some of the elements that made Lee Jae-myung emerge as a leader of such scale. And on last and personal note, I would like to also remember An Chang-ho, who was a Korean independence leader, who once said that those who participate are masters and those who don't are merely guests. So this time Korea has shown this sentiment that we are going to participate in this democracy, and we should not see it through the lens of conservative or democratic party, but the common consensus of all the Koreans to participate in the elections and show their democratic principles. That's all from my side.
Yes, and I want to move now back to Professor Toleraya. Let's talk about foreign policy now. What are the anticipated shifts in South Korea's foreign policy under this new leadership, particularly concerning relations with that of the US, with that of China, and of course, North Korea?
I would like to start with North Korea, which is an issue which hasn't been much on the election campaign, unlike the usual situation, because North Korea behaves remarkably quietly, no provocations, no trying to undermine South Korea. And so there is a difference for the election, but it's still a very important issue for future Lee Jae-myung policies. It's not urgent, but anyway, during these 5 years which Lee Jae-myung has ahead of him, he'll have to make a grave political decision: how to deal with the unification issue. North Korea have explicitly said that two Koreas are different countries, that North Korea is not striving for unification. It doesn't want to deal with South Korea because it's an enemy country, a foreign country. But South Korea still has as its motto unification, and the last administration put the unification on the liberal democratic basis as its motto, meaning that the North Korean regime should be dismantled, and in fact North Korea should become a part of South Korean Republic of Korea. This is not which is feasible, and the democratic administration should reciprocate to the new reality when there's no unification inside, and the word unification by itself is not tolerated by North Korea. I noted that Lee Jae-myung, in his pre-election speeches, he stressed more not on unification but on coexistence. So I think this is the way to go. And eventually, I hope that during these 5 years, the changes in the constitution of South Korea will be introduced, because still the constitution of South Korea, of Republic of Korea, it says that the whole of Korea, including the North, is a territory of the Republic of Korea. That's no longer feasible, given the North Korean nuclear weapon status and its alliance with Russia and China. So South Korea might also consider to come to the reality and abandon the goal of unification as it's put into its constitution. That would be a great change. And that, of course, will enable the two countries,
Yes.
South and North Korea, to coexist. And this brings, of course, the issue of relations with China and the U.S. U.S. is a trusted ally, and it will remain as such. But at the same time, I think South Korea should not urge U.S. not to set a relation with North Korea, to recognize North Korea, to find some kind of a peace deal, which Trump administration may be eager to do.
Yes. I want to come back to you, Song Yoo-jin. We have touched on this, but what do you think are the socio-economic issues that the new president must address, and what strategies are being proposed by both of these candidates?
Well, I think that leading up to the election, many people have said that the incoming president has a lot on his plate because, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of domestic and international issues have been put on hold since the country was put into a political uncertainty or turmoil since the martial law declaration. So I think that first off, what comes to my mind is trying to revive the shrinking economy, because we've been seeing outlooks regarding the Korean economy being notched down or being revised to a downward figure, which kind of shows how much the domestic economy is wobbling, the figures show. So I think that the incoming president should definitely address this, because the domestic economy is something that directly impacts people's lives, and people can definitely feel this. It can impact the job market, and so much more. So I think that this will definitely be at top of mind for the president. And also, in terms of looking at the society from a more broader perspective, I think that it's definitely thinking about ways to unify the country again, because it's not just experts here in Korea, but a lot of international news outlets and also media outlets experts have been pointing out that South Korea is very divided, almost to a point that some are calling the country being polarized at the moment, especially since the martial law declaration. We've been seeing fierce protests breaking out, people going out to the streets leading up to the Constitutional Court upholding President Yoon Suk Yeol's impeachment motion. There were both very big demonstrations calling for the impeachment of former President Yoon, and also those were against impeachment of the former president. So I think that looking ahead, the new president would have to think of ways to kind of unify the country into unifying the country and bringing a more stabilized country.
Yes, thank you. And Dr. Sanjay Kumar, I want to come to you once again, finally. What can we expect from the new leader that's being who will be the new leader? What immediate socio-economic changes? What, in regards to foreign policy, what's most important? If you can give us a quick wrap-up of everything that's the most important things to Koreans and what they're going to want from their new leader.
There are three aspects that needs to be addressed right now on a very quick basis. Of course, political, economic, and the diplomatic one. I would divide into these three. But political certainty, I think it has already been addressed, because now the voting has been done. So the leader would be in power is going to, of course, solve this political crisis in a way, because caretaker government for a couple of months had been not seen in a nicer way and a healthy way for a healthy democracy. So now we will be having a new leader. So definitely this political stability would be brought. But on the economic security aspect, I think the Lee Jae-myung, or like I think I will go with the exit polls, and like if he's elected, he will have to, and he will be thinking of how to make strategies to deal with Trump's tariff and to expand the exports, and he would be also quickly be trying to address the problems of the small merchants that he has been promising. And after a couple of months, I think he may touch some issues of reforms in the pension. Those things I think he would like to touch. But in the meantime, if we see the diplomatic side, he would have to address the diplomatic aspects as well through pragmatic diplomacy that he was advocating. So these all political, economic, and the diplomatic concerns need to be addressed. And I'm sure that the new leader might be thinking to address these concerns, because he is not going to be he is not going to be in an easy situation. He is going to face many problems, many challenges. Of course, he will be having a strong support of the party, but you know, in Korea, things happen very fastly. So we may see his decline in the ratings as well. So we have to just see the couple of months. Yeah.
Yes, well, that is all we have time for. I want to thank our guests, Song Yoo-jin, Dr. Sanjay Kumar, and Professor Georgie Toloraya. That's all we have time for, and we will continue to bring you all the news updates from the Korean election and from